Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another video for Eve Echoes. Today is Thursday, which means it's time for another installment of the weekly developer Q&A series posted to the Eve Echoes official Twitter account. Now, I know not a lot of you have access to Twitter or don't choose to have access to Twitter, so I think it's fun for me just to go over these, talk about what the questions and answers are, and how, in my opinion, that might affect the game. Of course, this is all just my personal opinion, and I promise that this week's one won't be quite as ranty as last week's one. If you do happen to have Twitter, do make sure that you are following, of course, both the Eve Echoes official Twitter account, and you can find me on Twitter as well, at CPT Benzie for Captain Benzie. Now, if there are any issues in the background of this, please be aware that I am still out at Masuna fishing camp here on the Zambezi River in Zimbabwe, so I'm not in my ideal recording environment. If things are a little bit echoey or there's any other sound discrepancies and issues, I do apologise for that. It does mean, however, that I've had time to sit down and actually record that sort of what life is like in Zimbabwe mini-series that I've been promising for a while. I've just got to edit all of that and upload it. That will then be out soon, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, with all of this said and done then, let's jump right in to this week's developer Q&A, which is for the 9th to 15th of June. The first question here: pilots that are playing as haulers cannot use ships like Nereus High Mobility in Nullsec. Is there any plan to change this? Lance responds, we do have a plan to make the market mechanic available for Nullsec outposts, but this requires significant development resources. We will begin working on this later this year. After implementing this, we will consider adding an additional delivery service. Now, this would be pretty cool in my opinion. I think having it go to Capsuleer outposts is a bit of a problem. I think there's all kinds of security issues and that inherent in that, plus balancing issues as well. But going to corporation outposts, I think that's a really cool way of doing it. It does mean that obviously you need to be aware that you as a hauler are going to need to be fairly friendly with that particular corporation so that you can fly through their space without getting harassed, harangued, or otherwise just blown up. But I think that could be a really cool mechanic. Maybe if you are flying something that has a package for that particular empire, it flags you with a special sort of, not just blue or red, maybe, I don't know, we've already got green icons, maybe a yellow icon, or a purple icon, no, purple's fleet. Some kind of icon that says, hey, I'm friendly, I am delivering something for you, I'm just the mailman, please don't shoot me. I think that could be a really cool way of doing things. Let me know your opinions and thoughts on that one in the comment section below. The second question: are there any plans to add more variety of ship lines to the 4 empires? Wilson responds, we do plan on adding additional ship lines, but we'll first focus on these. 1. Add additional Tech 10 variants of existing models. 2. Add more special variants of Tech 10 ships. 3. After finishing 1 and 2, we will consider adding additional new ship lines to the existing 4 empires. Now, to me, this is what I've been talking with Exile and the other developers about quite a bit. About things like missing ships. Where, for example, is our Rifter or Tormentor? Things like that at Tech 10. Obviously, a Tech 10 Tristan variant needs to be a thing. I'd love to see some just more frigates up there. Give me a Crucifier at Tech 10, that kind of thing there for frigates. Destroyers, of course, need something in the way of more of the turret boat destroyers like the Thrasher, the Coercer, the Cormorant and the Catalyst. We need to have something like the Thorax or other railgun ships up at Tech 10 as a proper combat ship. There's a few other things in like battle cruisers and that as well that could be added here and there. Things like more Guardians, more E-War ships, some of the more unusual roles that we just haven't seen in a while. I think definitely things like the Crucifier, the Vigil, the Griffin, and the Maulus would be a really interesting thing just to have at Tech 10 alone. Yeah, I think there's a lot that could be added here, and I'm glad to see that we are still going to be getting those. That's the additional Tech 10 variants of existing models, so things like a Tristan Tech 10, and the special variants, so again, like having some more things like maybe a Burst 3 for logistics at frigates, having another Guardian ship for destroyers. There's a lot that we can add here. Now, some people might be asking what the additional new ship lines that could be added to the new empires might be, and there are numerous. Starting with frigates, of course, there are the Navy issue versions of the E-War frigate, so not just, for example, the Crucifier and the Crucifier E-War, but also having the Crucifier Navy issue, which gets rid of most of its combat, most of its E-War potential, and instead focuses more heavily onto combat. You then have the 4 Empire faction frigates, the Republic Fleet Firetail, the Imperial Navy Slicer, the Caldari Navy Hookbill, and the Federation Navy Comet. Those are 4 very cool frigates. I cannot wait for those to be added. Certainly under destroyers, you then have the Tech 3 destroyers, like the Zweipel, the Hecate, the Confessor, and the Jackdaw. And then the Tech 3 cruisers as well, things like the Tengu, and I can never remember the name of the others, but it's that same sort of thing as the Tengu. So there's a lot of ships out there that are using exciting new models that are not just a variant of the Thrasher or the Talwar. The Zweipel is a completely different destroyer. It's a 3rd destroyer type, that kind of thing. There's a lot of these that could still be added to the game. Obviously, we still need to get Mordu's Legion and Sisters of Eve, but we know those are coming in August. Anyway, let's move on. The 3rd question, will there be any other nanocores available? Now, I've said this before, when you're asking questions to come up here in the developer Q&A, I think it is worth just checking what other information is out there already. This has been answered left, right and centre, but I suppose having it front and centre in a dev Q&A does help people to know that actually, yeah, this is answered. We now have a definitive answer here in black and white, courtesy of Lancedot. Similar to skins, we will release additional nanocores in the future and ensure that the attribute bonuses granted by the nanocore for each particular ship will better fit that ship's design. Obviously, there has been a lot of flack and a lot of backlash regarding the thermomagnetic storm core basically only having turret bonuses, making it useless on industrial ships, useless on drone ships, and useless on missile ships. But the developers basically turned around and said, look, we intended for each type of core to have a particular known attribute to it. So the thermomagnetic was supposed to be just turret bonuses. The issue is that there's nothing then for the missile ships, etc., etc. Giving the breeze cores as an example here, if you are flying something like the Atron, the Slasher, or the Executioner, the breeze cores for those, again, have additional turret damage, but the breeze nanocore for the Condor is just turret damage, and the Condor obviously uses missiles, so you're a bit screwed if you're, a Condor pilot. The idea being that you then have a Gust nanocore, for example, I don't know if that's what you'd actually call it, I'm just thinking breeze gust, that would then have missile and drone damage, so then the Condor would use the Gust, and the Tristan could use, say, the Gust to get the missile damage and have drones and missiles. It could use the Gust to get the drone damage amplifier from that. It could even still stick to the breeze and get bonus damage to its turrets, and then just have the drones basic as they are. It gives you a little bit of flexibility and choice there. We know that there are dedicated industrial ones on the way eventually, and things that will give, like, I don't know, additional minor processing, that kind of thing. It'd be nice to see some that have some more esoteric bonuses rather than just turret damage. I think seeing ones that added additional turret tracking, I know that's in the secondary stats, but I'd like to see one that has primary stats of turret tracking. Things like lowering your inertia modifier, increasing your natural flight velocity. I'd like to see more of the ones that do that kind of more unusual thing. I think they're a really cool way to modify a ship, and certainly there are things you can do with that. I've seen some people have been using some of the industrial ones and just enjoying the things like the additional drone damage, the additional capacitor, the additional power grid, that kind of thing there, so they can fit more modules and things onto them. But I get that obviously it would be nice to have one that is like dedicated minor circulation rig built into a nanocore, that kind of thing. I don't know, I think that would be an interesting conversation to have in the comments down below. What would you like to see as bonuses on industrial ships? And that includes hauling. So we're talking about hauling a lot recently. What could you put onto something like a Nereus that would actually make it better and worthwhile having a nanocore for it? Anyway, moving on to the final question, I want to know what the future of PvE will be like for this game. That is as much for groups of 10 to 20 people gathering like for a WoW raid, as it is for players just wanting to go solo and have fun playing on mobile and in small spurts as intended. I'm going to pause here before reading Nero's response. This as intended just because it's a mobile game. I really massively disagree with this, and I've had like some fairly heated discussions with people on this. You cannot say that just because it's a mobile game, it must, by definition, be designed to be played in small bursts, semi-AFK, and completely casually. That is not true at all. You cannot define a game by the platform that it is played on. Just as there are plenty of PC or console games that will demand that you sit down and spend, a good evening with them. Games like, for example, off the top of my head, something like Horizon Zero Dawn or Bloodborne, something like like Red Dead Redemption. These kind of games require you to sit down and put a decent amount of time in. You can't just pick it up for 5 minutes. You sit down, you put some effort in. Equally, there are games that can be played on PC and console that are designed to be played in short bursts. There are games out there that if you just want to pick up something for 5 minutes, if I've got a bit of time and I'm sitting around at the house, for example, with my old laptop, I can flick that open and play a quick against the PC version of Unreal Tournament Deathmatch. That's a quick 5-minute thing. Going through the entire campaign in Unreal Tournament, however, is not the same thing, or playing Quake is not something that I can do in a quick 5-minute burst. Going through the campaign of Quake is going to take a lot longer than 5 minutes. Each individual stage can take longer. I hope I'm getting my point across there, that PC and console have games that can be played in short bursts and semi-casually, and they have ones that are fairly intensive. Mobile is the same. I want people to understand that just because it's a game on mobile does not mean that it has to be this casual little piddly game that doesn't actually mean anything. Mobile used to be games like Candy Crush, Angry Birds, this kind of thing. It then started diversifying a bit more, and we started to get things like, for example, Brawl Stars, Clash Royale, even Clash of Clans, that have a bit more time involvement in them, but still ultimately fairly pick up and play. The average match is 3 to 5 minutes long. You can just pick it up, play a quick match, and put it straight back down again if you want to. But recently, we've been getting a lot more intensive mobile experiences as well. If you want to play something like Black Desert Online, or if you want to play Warhammer Odyssey, if you want to play Albion Online, these are games that require a bit more time for you to sit down and play with. Call of Duty Mobile, yeah, a match may take 5 minutes, but equally a Battle Royale match, or something like PUBG, again, can take 30 minutes to 45 minutes. What about League of Legends Wild Rift? What about Vainglory back in the days? These are mobile games that demand more of your time. So trying to say that it's a mobile game, it's supposed to be quick and easy. No, it's not. You cannot define a game just by its platform. And the key with Eve Echoes, it's an MMORPG, a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. You can't sit there and say, oh, it's a mobile game. No, it's an MMO that happens to be on the mobile platform. So Nero says, the essence of games like Eve Echoes is that players help build up their universe together and interact with each other. Future gameplay will continue to build upon this idea. We will consider adding special instances in some anomalies or nihilist space, allowing around 20 players to fight against NPC pirates as a team. This might be added as a smaller side content update instead of a major one though, and I'm all for that. Eve is a group game at its heart. I get that you can't always sit there and, some people have families, some people have, demanding jobs. I get that. I do. I know that I'm lucky to be able to sit and play Eve most of the day, although I say lucky, I kind of feel like I have to play it all day. Which it's nice for me, like this week, to come out here to Masuna and basically unplug a little bit, put the game down a little bit, just focus on doing the Concord Pass and spend time with the family, because Eve has become a bit of a job for me. But I get that people have families, people have jobs, people have other responsibilities that mean they can't be in the game at all times. That's fine. That's to be expected. But it doesn't mean that those people should still be able to achieve everything that other people can. Again, using WoW as an example here, they talk about WoW raids. If you are a one-man solo player and you don't want to join a guild, you're probably never going to experience the top-end raid content, because that's the point. You're going to be stuck with things like the story quests and daily login missions and things like that, where you just run around and grind some mobs. You maybe do a heroic dungeon or two with the dungeon finder, but it's pretty basic stuff that's not going to get you the top-end gear, and the same is true in Eve. Now, I know we've got people in Void, we've got people in Catskull who are not around all that often. They can only play semi-casually. Find yourself a good corporation, and playing semi-casually means you can still do those things. We've got guys who literally log on and go, I've just put the kids to sleep, I've got a couple of hours before I go to bed, what's happening? And they'll start up a ratting fleet and they'll go do some Dead Space anomalies or some Inquisitors or Scouts or whatever. They'll go do a PvP roam together. They'll go do some storylines in Nullsec. They'll, just sit there and have a chill mining session. This is an MMORPG, massively multiplayer. And if you are trying to solo the game, you're kind of doing it wrong. I don't want to say wrong, as in, there needs to be some kind of solo content, I get that. But solo content is never, in an MMO, particularly lucrative. It's a filler. It's a filler while you're waiting for your group to arrive, and that's basically what high-sec encounters are. And low-sec encounters can be, as long as you're watching local. Again, I've spent this entire week out here on H+ internet. It's atrocious internet. But I'm flying my Hurricane in Nullsec and doing some of these encounters and things and still getting away with it. I've yet to be destroyed in my Hurricane, touch wood, because I'm paying attention. Because as soon as I see someone in local for too long, I warp to safety. I keep my eyes open and I play it super safe. So it's good to see that we are getting some more group content. To the same token, I would like to see some more solo content. I think that adding some new varied missions would be cool. Not just new missions where you just fly in and blow stuff up. As I've given examples before, in EVE Online there are missions where you arrive in your belt or whatever, and there's a space station that you need to blow up. You can ignore all of the rats, fly past them, and just blow up the space station if you think you can destroy it before the rats destroy you. That's a cool mission. There are ones where you have to hold a guy in position using scramblers and webs and things like that until Concord arrive. You can blow up his friends, but if you blow up his ship, you fail the mission. Things like this, just a bit more variety in the missions in HiSec, could certainly make it better. I just don't think that we need to make HiSec missions more lucrative. You can already make good money in HiSec, just it takes a while. It just takes a while, but that's the price you pay for it being completely safe, and I'm not going to go back into this rant. You all know my opinions on that one. So there we have it. There's our 4 questions for this week. We are getting a hauling overhaul at some point that may include delivering to to Corporation Citadels. We are getting more Tier 10 variants of existing models, and we're getting special variants of Tier 10 ships. We then might get additional ships after that. We will be getting more nanocores soon, with more bonuses to things like industrial, drones, missiles. Heck, we've even been told that some of these nanocores might be purposely designed towards interdictors or interceptors, that kind of thing. And finally, we are going to be getting more group content further down the line. We also know that August is supposed to be coming with updates to some of the missions, so hopefully that's some new solo content as well. Anyway, folks, that just about covers everything in this particular installment of the weekly Q&A. If you have a question you'd like to ask the developers, I will put a link in the description down below that you can click through and make sure that you're asking a question to the developers. Otherwise, ask on the official EVE Echoes Discord, and anyone who is chosen has their question answered will receive a month of Basic and Mega. Anyway, folks, thank you ever so much for watching. Let me know your opinions down below. Otherwise, happy sailing, and see you in New Eden.